Buenos dias, everybody. This is West Coast Wanderlust, and I'm coming at you from my home here in Seattle, Washington. And I've been home for about 2 weeks now, and I wanted to touch on a couple of things that I learned from cruising. So this was my very first experience doing a cruise. I went with my friend Steven and his partner Drew, his dad, his stepmother, his two step siblings, James and Jamie, Jamie's best friend Michelle, and Steven's younger brother Brandon. And we were also joined by two old family friends, Rick and Wanda. So there was 11 of us in total. So the first thing I had to get was my passport. That was a pretty easy thing to get. I went down to my local community center and I had my money that I needed to send off to the Department of Justice. And I also had an additional $20 to give to the community center, which was for the city of Seattle, to process the paperwork for my passport. Beforehand, I had to get some photographs taken, so I just went down to the local drugstore and I had a couple of photographs taken, and it was a pretty easy process. Just filled out all the documentation that I needed and turned everything in, and I received my passport about a month later. I applied for my passport on August 7th. And we left on our cruise on January 27th, so I gave myself plenty of time beforehand to get that done. So with my passport in hand and some money in my wallet, we went down to the port where the cruise ship was docked, and we checked in with security. And I checked a bag, and while we were checking in, you get a card called the Sign and Sail, and they give you an option of putting some money on the card that will act like a debit card while you are on the ship, and that comes in very handy if you're trying to buy drinks and anything that is not included with your fare. I ended up putting quite a bit of money on my Sign and Sail card, $340 to be exact. And I figured that was going to be more than enough money for my drinks and anything that I needed, plus my tips. So we had a check-in time of 11 a.m. and we were there with plenty of time. And I checked my bag and carried on another suitcase and another bag. So I had 3 items in total, and all the boys that I was sharing a bunk with, that was Steven, Drew, and Brandon, they all had their luggage in hand, so they just carried it on the ship. Once we were on the ship, we were able to get a bite to eat and kind of mill around a little bit while we were waiting for our room to be available, which would have been at 1 p.m. And then once our room was available, we went to go check it out to see what it was about, and we had an interior stateroom. And when we arrived, the 2 lower beds were pushed together to make a queen-size bed. So we had our room steward push the beds apart and then bring down the 2 bunks from the ceiling, so we had a total of 4 beds. In the room, we had a safe, we had a mini fridge, we had a vanity, we had a 3-door wardrobe that had some hangers and shelving available for us to put all of our items away. And we also had a small restroom with a commode, a sink, and a shower. In the bathroom, there was also some shelving units that were attached to the mirror, so we were able to take our toiletries out and have everything at hand. As far as electronics, there was only a TV in there that I would say was about a 27-inch TV, and we had 2 power outlets. One was for European plugs for a 220 volt, and the other was a American plug for a 120 volt, but it did not have the 3-prong, it was only a 2-prong. So because there were 4 of us and there was only 1 outlet, there was a struggle for charging your phone. So 2 of us had Androids and the other 2 had Apple products. So we were always rotating who was on the charger, and I found that to be a bit of a challenge. And the next cruise that I go on, I will at least make sure that I have a power outlet with multiple USB ports. The one thing that I was surprised about was the quality of food on the cruise ship. I was expecting it to be a bit better, if I'm honest. We had a dining room table that seated all 11 of us, and for the most part we would have our dinners in the main dining room, and that came with a menu with several options on it. I would say about between 8 to 12 options for dinner every night. 4 of them were always from the grill, so there was always a pork option, there was always a steak, some kind of chicken, and a fish. There were always appetizers, and I found that there was usually a salad option and soup, so that's usually what I opted for. And I will say that the soups that I had were delicious, and I would recommend the soups. I found the salads to be heavily dressed, so if that's not something that you enjoy, you should ask for the dressing on the side. A lot in our party liked to order the shrimp cocktail, and they were kind of underwhelmed at the quality of the shrimp cocktail. I don't personally eat shrimp, so I can't really say if it was good or bad, but the general consensus at our table was that it was okay but not great. When you ordered a steak, as I did, I ordered a prime rib one night and I ordered a filet the other. You had to order it less than you prefer to eat it, so I normally eat my steaks medium, and so I was ordering them medium rare to make sure that they got to medium, because they always seem to be like they were overcooked. A lot of the meat had some sort of gravy on it. For instance, I ordered the prime rib one night and was expecting to have a thin au jus, and it was more like a heavy brown gravy, which was surprising. And even the fillets were covered in whatever kind of sauce that they were putting on in the kitchen. The food I did enjoy was the breakfast buffet. I was usually able to find a decent French toast, and it's pretty hard to screw up French toast, so that was good, and there was always butter and syrup available. We would also do the buffet for lunch, and they had several options. I would normally do the salad bar, and I'd get a good green salad, and I would get a fruit plate, and then whatever kind of entrees that they were serving, which was different from day to day depending on where the port of call was. One of the favorites in our group was the pizza bar, and that was open 24 hours a day, which was great because after a swim or going down to see a comedy show or having a few drinks, you were always guaranteed to have a decent slice of pizza. And it was a really thin crust, and they used fresh mozzarella, and I found the pizza was one of the better things that I had while on the cruise. I did not drink too much while I was on the cruise. Our first full sea day was about the only day that I had a little bit too much to drink. And we were drinking down in the piano room, and then we went dancing, and people were buying me drinks, and I bought a round of drinks for Stephen and Drew. And so pretty much that was my big spending day for drinks, and I spent about $50 on drinks, and which isn't bad because if you get the double tall whatever, we were doing double tall Jack and Cokes, those were about $9 a piece. So for the rest of the cruise I pretty much only drank at port, and Dave, who is Stephen's father, had a tradition that he wanted to do to where when we were all meeting up at the end of the day at port, we'd meet at a local cantina and we would have a rum punch of some sort. The one thing that I would recommend staying away from on the cruise ships are the desserts. I had a few things that were okay. I believe the first day I was on the cruise, we did the dining room and I had a Nutella tiramisu. I also had a Kahlua mousse that was okay. It was a little bit strong in flavor, but it was alright. There was one day that there was a okay cheesecake. But pretty much everything else was strange. If you order any kind of cheesecake that does not come from the boutique cafe down on the second level, it's pretty much jello, no bake, kind of jiggly wobbly mess that didn't have a whole lot of flavor. So I would stay away from the baked goods. The pie a la mode option was decent, as were the scoops of ice cream that you could get at the end of the meal. So this definitely was an interesting trip for me as far as cruising. It's not something that I would typically do for myself on a vacation. Normally when I go on vacation, it's a road trip or camping in the woods or something like that. The only place that I've ever flown to on vacation was Hawaii, and I've been there 3 times, and I've always stayed at a condo where I do my own cooking and cleaning for the week. The thing that kind of turned me off to cruising was the consumerism that was present. Every single port of call had the same stores selling the same things. There was always the Diamonds International, the Tanzanite International, the Caraloa, the Jimmy Buffett's, Margaritaville, the Harley Davidson store. You know, it's just the same thing, just rebranded with the location of where you were. After our first full sea day, I was wondering what I had gotten myself into, because the cruise ship was very busy with a lot of people, and that's not something that I typically enjoy. In fact, I made the quip to Dave that normally when I'm on vacation, I'm alone in the woods. So being on a cruise ship with 3,000 people isn't something that I would normally do on vacation. But the group that we had was great. The Peaches are amazing. Dave and Joe were very hospitable, and they were funny and kind, and they were just great to get along with. I had fun hanging out with Steven's siblings, especially his younger brother Brandon, who we shared the bunk with. He was hilarious. He has that mean, sarcastic kind of humor that I just love. You know, that's how Matt and I were together. And, you know, he was just hilarious. He was always making me laugh. So I just wanted to say thank you to Dave and Joe for including me on your family cruise this year. I had a great time, and I cannot wait to do it again. The one thing that I wasn't sure that I was going to do that I'm glad I did was take Dramamine. I took some the day before we got on the cruise ship, and I took it every 24 hours. When we left Tampa, we hit some storms, and the boat was rocking and swaying pretty good. And I know that I would have gotten seasick had it not been for Dramamine, so I'm very thankful that I did that. So if you tend to get any kind of motion sickness, I highly recommend taking it. The only side effect that I seemed to have was it was making me a little bit drowsy, so I was glad that I took it toward the end of the day. So toward the end of the cruise, we went down to guest relations desk, and oh well, hello. So toward the end of the cruise, we went down to the guest relation desk, and we had them reverse the tips that were charged to our sign-in sale cards. So we could give them cash tips. Basically, they have a set percentage that they will give to the dining room staff, to your room stewards, and also to the buffet staff. So if you're happy with your service, you can just leave it like that. Or if you're unhappy, or if you want to give them more, you can have them take off the sign and sale tips, and you can put the cash in an envelope and actually hand it to the person that you were impressed with. We didn't feel the dining room staff did a fantastic job, so we paid them a little bit less than the recommended amount for their tip. But we felt that our room steward did a phenomenal job, so we gave him a little bit more, so it kind of evened itself out. There was a guy that was walking around the dining room every night, and he was selling shots in these colorful little shot glasses, and Stephen ended up getting one each day because he was collecting the shot glasses, and he felt like he did a great job, so Stephen ended up tipping him extra as well, which he wouldn't normally be tipped. So just keep that in mind when you're cruising yourself, that you can kind of control how much tips that you're giving out to each set of staff. So the things that I would do a little bit differently, as I had mentioned previously, is I would have a charger with multiple USB ports. We were able to bring one bottle of wine on, which was great. I would definitely do that again. And I would bring a 12-pack of soda, which you're allowed to bring, and I did not. Otherwise you have to buy the Bubbles package is what it's called, and it's $65 and it comes with an insulated cup and you get soda, but you have to go to the bar to get your soda. So I wouldn't want to deal with the hassle of that. I would just go down to my room and get my soda myself. All in all, I had a great experience traveling. It was awesome to fall asleep at night and wake up in a different part of the Caribbean, and I'm so glad that we had a nice diverse set of ports that we visited. And next time I visit, I will be better prepared for each situation that comes up. Thank you for joining me as I discussed my first experience cruising. I hope you learned something and that my experiences can benefit you. So I'll see you guys later.